Hello, friends. So, just got my proof copy of Wild River today, and yeah, had a look at that. We're sitting here talking about it. This is my brain trust here. Everybody say hi.
Hello.
Hello.
This is my beautiful wife Elsie, and
Hi.
this is Ale and Austin and KJ. And yeah, we're just talking about the book. I was asking what they think about the cover and the thoughts on the book and how it matches the cover and everything. It's just like let's say some talk about some of the stuff that we've already said. Like
I think KJ had a
oh
really
yeah
good couple
Yeah.
points.
So I again love the cover. We've been kind of going back and forth on, is the cover too dark? Is it
yeah
going to capture the feeling of the actual fantasy part of what you're doing? I don't know if the camera can see this, but we also had this option, which is definitely more mystical. But my point was that while a lot of us are used to authors who capitalize on that mystical magic part of fantasy, I think that we are kind of forgetting that Ronald is offering a really cool spin on fantasy literature, that he's bringing in his own personality, which is being very effective at communicating difficult concepts in a logical and persuasive way. So besides being a cool story with cool fantasy stuff going on, he's also tackling really cool historical philosophical questions. So there's a start. That this might be the thing that captures Ronald's thing in a fantasy, even though it's different than what we normally experience in a fantasy.
Right, and it really is like it's where Ronald shines, right? At those historical, deeper, philosophical big pictures. So I 100% agree with that. Hi, this is really awkward. I 100% agree with that. I do think that we need to capitalize on that. I do think that is a thing that makes Ronald unique, and that is the uniqueness he brings to the fantasy world, which is not there. But ultimately, I do still believe that we are going after a fantasy audience. So people who are like KJ here, Austin here, myself, Ali as well, but just like a little bit harder core, like people who really do enjoy fantasy and the epic. Because the reality of this book is that even though this book does capture that uniqueness of Ronald, it is still pushing to a longer, bigger epic story, which is totally related to fantasy, to powers, to magic, to adventure, to coolness, to just excitement. And in that sense, I don't feel that that is the right cover. So I think one of the suggestions was like, switching to this one on the front and then putting this one like on the back. I think that's one of the possibilities. Based on what you said, though, have you changed your mind about that? Like, because we've been talking for a while.
I think that was more of a suggestion of like, I'm not sure that I have the place to say what your cover should be and what story it should tell. And there may be an audience out there who would be more attracted to this cover. In all honesty, though, like the fact is, I would probably not pick up this
This over
book
here.
on my own. Like this was not
Right.
what I would originally go
Yeah.
for, except for having known Ronald and knowing the perspective that he brings. So I do think something more mystical would
Yeah.
capture somebody like me. Um, and I feel like maybe that's where I'm coming from. I'm going to be drawn into the philosophical debate side from the fantasy side, not the other way around.
Same for me. Yeah.
The interesting thing, I actually have a different perspective. I actually just remembered, so I actually read a book from, I think it's Jim Butcher. And the cover of his book, it's very similar, but on the cover, it's like a wizard in a modern world or something like that. And it shows a wizard, but he has like a shotgun on his shoulder, and it's a very dark cover like this, and that totally grabbed my attention, and I grabbed it and read it, and, well, mostly enjoyed the book. There are a couple of parts in there that were dicey. But what I really like about this cover, I'm actually very attached to it because I love the lettering on it and just how it blends in with the feel of the book. Because Ronald, something that he does explore here, he doesn't shy away from some of the really ugly things that happen, right? Topics like slavery, topics about good and evil, these kinds of philosophies and topics, he doesn't shy away from the ugly parts of this. Not meaning that the book is dirty, it's not, but he really does address that people do suffer in these circumstances and that there are some grim realities here. To balance that, the book also has a lot of amazing high moments and wonderful magic, and it's amazing. But I really do think the cover does do it justice. But at the same time, of course, a lot of this is about marketing and making sure that people want to pick up the book the first time. And so that is certainly a concern that we're also seeking to address.
I think I'll just bring up the same point that I have before, which is like, again, I actually, like, if I look at the cover and the way the book looks, I actually think this is beautiful. I really do. Like, when he got the book in the mail today and he opened, I was like, that actually looks incredibly cool. My problem is not even so much that, and it's not even that brings the darkness. It's like, okay, the story really isn't that dark. For those of you who are listening, like, maybe we're making it sound like a super dark. It really isn't.
This is not grimdark fantasy.
It's a fantasy.
It's a fantasy with some dark things that
and,
happen.
and there's a lot of goodness. The characters are honorable. Like, it's really not that dark. It's just darker than perhaps what we like here.
It's
like,
darker than Sanderson.
Yeah, it's a little darker than Sanderson, but ultimately that's my problem. Like, it's not that the cover makes me think of darkness, is that I think the cover is not capturing the full of the story, because ultimately, yes, there's some dark things in the story. Yes, it's a little bit about this, you know, the war, the city, the slavery and all of that, but ultimately is fantasy.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it is magic and powers. Ultimately, is about more than this, and because of that, I feel that this shows what the book really is about more than this. Even if this is just a part of the book, the overall story is a fantasy story. So the thing in this book is that I would never look at this cover and think that this is a book that talks about fantasy. I would not associate this cover, if I saw it anywhere online in the store, with a fantasy story. That's my problem. It's not the darkness, it's the fantasy. This does not look like a fantasy story to me. It's cool, it's beautiful, all kinds of things, just doesn't look fantasy.
Yeah, I thought about having like showing like some of these guys with like hands glowing with energy or something, but that would not be true to the story. So
Right, right.
So, question, and this comes from someone who doesn't know anything about publishing books, but I have had books that have different covers. So could you publish the same book with different
Oh, I see
covers
what you mean.
and
Yeah.
test and still test? Because I can see how people in Quora will be really interested in covers like this, compared to people like you guys that are interested in fantasy. So do you have both available and see which one? Maybe one's gonna be more popular. Maybe the other
yeah,
one.
and I actually thought about doing one with for the hardback and another one for the paperback, but yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know if I would want to do that, but yeah, my feeling is, yeah, this definitely, like, and this is what I was saying earlier, is like this looks like a Western. Like and that also goes back, the title also feels like a Western, and there are certain aspects. I mean, it is that time period, you know, this is modeled after 1860s America, right after the Civil War, you know, and so there is that aspect of it. And I feel that the title goes really well with this image, but as we've said, yeah, the image doesn't really communicate that this is a fantasy book.
Right.
Um,
I actually thought of it more of a Sherlock, but like a
Yeah.
Western Sherlock that's a little
Yeah.
bit more mystical and magical.
Yeah,
But
and there are elements of all those things in there.
Right, but it's not
Yeah.
it's not the main thing. And in fact, the first exposition, I guess, exposition you have to the book really is attached to this image.
That is true.
Like the
true,
first
that's very
thing
true.
that we have written like we wrote. Like the first thing that you wrote is the prologue, and
Yeah.
the prologue is introducing the stories for fantasy readers.
true.
Yeah,
Like, if I pick up the book and I read the prologue, yes, it caught me right away, because I'm like, oh, this is a fantasy book. So your prologue is not that. Your prologue is this. And you're hooking fantasy readers with your prologue. Therefore, I win. This is the new comic. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I agree. It's super- It looks so good in print, Ronald.
It
Like,
does
it's
look
really beautiful. I was
beautiful.
surprised at how thick it is.
I know.
Like, reading
I was
it-
also surprised at how thick it is.
when we read it, we had it on, like, I just scrolled through my phone. It just
Right.
never ended. It was just a never-ending scroll, and I didn't realize, like, this is like a substantial contribution
real
to the world
book.
of fantasy. This
So
is really cool.
The funny thing is that
500.
like when I finished the first complete draft, it was like 100,000 words, and then I went back and started adding stuff, and now it's over 150,000 words.
I didn't even know what
513
it
plus
is.
pages.
So yeah, it's
And the
it's
font
substantial.
size is not like huge. Like,
Yeah.
it's not like it's making. It's a normal font size. Yeah.
Good book.
Yeah, I know.
But then again, this is a lot less than like a Wheel of Time book. So
not some of them. Some of them were about
yeah.
that. Yeah.
The Wheel of Time was mostly about 1,000 pages. Some
Yeah.
of them were down to
Yeah.
800 to
Yeah.
900, but this is about 500.
yeah,
There were a
Yeah.
couple that were like that. It's definitely Mistborn. Actually, probably a little bit bigger than the
little bit bigger than the
Mistborn.
Secret.
yeah, it's a little bit Miss Moore,
Yeah. So I was also like, I was like, that looks like that is real. You wrote a book,
Yeah, yeah.
like kind of a feeling, like.
Will you say that it's like
I do like it.
What's his face? Dan Brown, but instead of science fiction, it's fantasy.
Like in the terms of darkness and reality.
And also, there's
Yeah.
someone who gets the clues, like an investigator type of person, the main character, and there's a lot of dark.
It's weird because I think that Dan Brown is more graphic. Dan Brown is very graphic, but he is still peppy. Is still the peppy science fiction. I don't know how to explain it. That's the thing again. I don't think that yours is so much as dark as it is realistic. Like the descriptions are more realistic. Because you're not graphic. You don't go after the graphic, terrible visual stuff. That's not what you're doing. It's just that you're presenting reality as a really harsh reality.
Which,
Yeah.
if I can say something here, is something we need in our society. Like in the United States, so many of us live these lives that are they just feel so easy and life's just so good. But when we look at the news or when we look at organizations like Operation Underground Railroad and the things that are really going on in the world, the truth is there's so much darkness that is just hidden from our view. And how helpful would it be to have more of us a little more aware, because it doesn't bring you down emotionally. This book doesn't bring you down, but to be aware of this is happening and we need some sort of justice to respond.
Yeah.
And I think that's a
Yeah, and there's actually in the chapter epigraphs, they're all excerpts from a book supposedly written by Valesia, one of the characters. It's about her philosophy on art, and one of them is actually about being graphic. Like she actually talks about being graphic, and yeah, I'm not going to hide the fact that Valesia, basically everything that Valesia says in those little epigraphs is like straight from my brain. Like,
Of course.
like, well, I mean, it's like not even like, all these characters are from my brain,
But they're different than you, right?
But Valesia's philosophy of things is almost exactly my philosophy of things. Almost exactly. There are little differences, but almost
which
exactly.
as one of your beta readers, like I remember thinking, who did he get these incredible quotes from for these little epigraphs at the beginning? Like those are one of my favorite parts of the book. Where those were deep thinking quotes that were well said, and I was like, who's this really awesome artist out there with an incredible philosophy on art that we're pulling from? And I'm like, oh my gosh, you wrote this? I remember being really surprised when you told me that they were completely original. That was cool.
That is awesome. Thank you.
Indeed.
Thank you.
The epigraphs were fantastic for sure. Definitely. Like there are very few books. Like honestly, like Sanderson does a great job with his, right? But at the same time, I prefer these a lot, especially to the Stormlight Archive ones. To be fair though, I felt kind of bad because every time I'm going to read one, it's going to be somebody else dying. But these were very uplifting and also very deep. I was impressed.
They are very deep.
Well, some of that I like about Sanderson's epigraph is he draws from all these different places, and so he gives this broader view of the world. Whereas in this book, at least, all my epigraphs come from one place, from one book written by one of the characters. But
I think the difference with Sanderson's as well, and I'll be honest on this one, I actually love Sanderson, and I really like his epigraphs. But I think the difference is that like you are introducing and presenting philosophical thoughts on your epigraphs. Sanderson is using the epigraphs to tell the background story.
Yeah.
That is the difference.
Which is probably better writing in my honest opinion, because he's establishing the world. But
like I said at the beginning, I think that is what Ronald has to offer. That honestly, even Sanderson, I'm a huge Sanderson fan myself. I don't think he has the intention to offer that.
Yeah.
And I don't think he could offer it the same way that Ronald does. Like I think that the way that Ronald pursues philosophy and pursues critical thought is unique and helpful and something that the world needs.
Yeah, I agree. I do like Sanderson's epigraphs though. I like the story behind it, but I 100% agree. I think that it's the uniqueness about you, and that's how you stand out, and that's what you're making differently in the fantasy world. And I think that's fine. I'm okay with that. It doesn't have to be Sanderson. It should be Ronald.
Yeah.
And then to take that and like to bring those ideas forward through a really well told fantasy story is pretty cool. And well done. The story itself is engaging, and I got excited about it. I was really happy about the characters, the different plot lines, and the magic system that is just hinted at the beginning, and then you're just like craving, where does this come in? And as it starts to be exposed, you're like, oh my gosh, this is a really cool story for a fantasy reader. It was really cool.
Admittedly, I don't put as much thought in my magic systems as Sanderson does. I focus more on other things, but I definitely am as I've talked about in other videos, I am definitely a hard magic fan. I like that aspect, and that's one thing where Sanderson and I are pretty similar. So I guess one last question for those of you who've read the book. By the way, Ale hasn't. She just started it, so she may have a few thoughts, but she just started the book. The other three have read it. Who would be your favorite character in the book, or the person that you think that you can say the most meaningful thing about? We'll start with KJ,
Sure,
Jen,
put me on the
hard
spot.
unless someone else wants to go first.
Oh, I need to think. I think we all need to think on that one. So give us a couple minutes. Okay,
I
not
mean,
full couple
ooh,
I
minutes.
Okay.
guess I'm good
You
to
ready?
go actually.
Good.
For me, it's gonna be cliche.
Enough. No, I'm just kidding.
You used my second actually. But I think my first is probably gonna be the cliche, the main character Bandus.
Bandus.
And it's just Ronald really goes deep, and he goes really, really deep into Bandus's. Well, he doesn't go in, how to say it. He doesn't go drone on about Bandus's past or anything like that, but he goes deep into what makes Bandus who he is today and why Bandus thinks the way that he does. And it's pretty remarkable to me that Ronald was able to take somebody that many would have considered ordinary at some point, and then showed us how Bandus grew beyond himself, grew beyond his own selfishness, his own humanity, and eventually rose up to become a really cool hero. And taking us down that journey from just being a good person to becoming somebody heroic, willing to risk his life, put his life on the line to save other people, even people he doesn't know well. And just showing that journey is a remarkable thing that I think we've been missing in society for a long time. Versus, having heroes that are just, super twisted and trying to make them work. Like, this legitimately shows such a good and powerful path of how to go from being good to becoming better. So I really do like Bandus for that reason.
I love that. That's a really
Yeah.
good argument. You ready?
I'm
'Cause
gonna say maybe a weird one here, but Mother Kaltrana.
Okay, then.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I might be going off course here. I'm certainly not a favorite character. You don't love her.
Right.
But to get the inside scoop on a monstrous person's development
Indeed.
is, I don't know. It was shocking and awakening, and I think that all good writing is not meant to leave you happy that you read it. And when you get deep into where she's coming from, like, I was like, wow, that was really well done. And I don't. She's somebody that she's a villain that's done so well that I just like I cringe whenever I think about her every time. So as far as like nailing a villain that is actually bad and I really don't want to ever have to meet or come close to, like, yeah, that would Mother
Kaltrana, good.
She's
Nice.
creepy, cringy.
Yeah.
Not a fan.
All right, I have decided my next Halloween character.
That would actually be a great costume. That'd be a great costume. Yeah.
Oh gosh, I am still unable to answer the question. I think I like Bandas a lot, and I actually loved your reasons. I think that was really well thought, and those were really good reasons. I'm having a hard time, to be honest. Like, a part of me kind of want to say one of the girls, but I don't think they are my favorite, even though I'm a girl. And this is we were just talking about that with Ronald the other day, but did you guys notice that he actually has a lot of girls in the story?
there are a ton of
like
Yeah.
main girls, not sidestep girls. Like
No.
there's a ton of women in Ronald's story, and I don't even think that it was like fully intentional, but it's weird. Man, Bandas. I don't personally love Arrow actually, and the one I want to say is one of my favorite characters. I don't think I have enough arguments for it because she doesn't show up enough. But I actually like Silana, which is the girl that has disappeared. The very brief things you see about her, she feels very happy, very brave, very assertive and forward. Like she just goes after things.
She is more assertive than Errol, definitely.
Yeah, she feels like she has more of a character, that she has more
Yeah.
to her. But you just don't see her enough because
She's a prisoner most of the time.
she's
yeah.
disappeared.
Yeah, but
So-
you're gonna see more of her in the Still Army. She's gonna be more a little bit more of a character in that one. But
And
yeah.
that was just to not repeat Bandas, because
Yeah.
but I think if I don't think of Solana, Bandas would be, and
all right.
Austin gave him amazing reasons. What is yours?
Oh, mine. Well, that's a hard one. It's hard to not just say Bandas also because
Right.
he's the main character.
Right.
But I actually think I'm gonna say Tagan.
I was thinking of Tagan
Because,
as well.
but see the development, because of the development that happens with him. But the problem with that is some of that development only I know of.
Right.
Because it's very
Right.
very subtle. But he actually goes through an important development in this story.
Right.
But you're not going to get a full realization of what the significance is until the next book. He actually makes some very hard decisions that you only kind of partially see in this book, and you don't really understand them, but you will see them more in the next book. And so for that reason, I'm going to say Tagan. I do like Tagan. He actually, in this book, it's kind of, you have to kind of read between the lines with him, but he's been kind of a coward for a lot of his life.
Last life?
A
All
lot
lives?
of his, yeah. You give away too much information. He's been kind of a coward, but he's kind of, it's almost like he's made a decision to stop that, and part of that is Solana's influence.
That's admirable.
And he's kind of decided to step up and take a stand, and you'll see more of the significance of that in the next book in the Still Army. So yeah, that's what I one more thing.
Yeah, can I actually add something to that? I was thinking of Tagan. I just didn't say him for one very specific reason. I am wondering if I am having misjudgment because I'm a girl and he's handsome.
she likes the picture of
I
Tagan.
do like Tagan. He's a handsome guy. But now that you said it, I can say it as well. I do think I agree with that. But what I really was going to say is that Tagan is one of the reasons why this is a fantasy book.
Yeah.
Because his backstory and the development that Ronald knows and that is going to start going into the other books is one of the actual big, deeper things that is happening in this place, in the story, in this book. It's part of the epic elements of it. So just kind of pulling back to that fantasy thing, and yeah, I 100% agree with you because I also know his development and the things that you're mentioning. Like, I agree. I think that seeing that growth in him, perhaps it's a little bit of the conversation we were having the other day about Kaladin and Adolin, right? Like, Kaladin is amazing. We love him. He's a hero. There's no disputing that. But at the same time, sometimes it's easier to be that in the situation that Kaladin is than when everything is just easy for you. Like, it's so easy for Adolin to just be a jerk. It's so easy for him to just behave like the prince that gets everything. And guess what? He will.
She's talking about
Yeah, now I'm
Sanderson,
going
by
back
the way.
into Sanderson, right? So I feel with Tagan is the same thing. Like, to go from being like a rich guy who has power in all kinds of senses, right? To then deciding to become better. I think that is hard. I don't think that is easy. That is not an easy choice. And I think that is what makes him truly admirable.
Yeah, he has a soft and privileged life.
Right,
And
right. And
but
he
and
could
he's
stay with that.
and he could stay like that literally for forever. But he decides to go and do the right thing, and
Right.
that's
Yeah,
admirable.
I like it.
So
So
anyway, well, cool. Thanks everybody for the group discussion. We should do this again.
vote for your cover.
Yeah, we're gonna. I want to. Anyone seeing this video, tell me which cover do you think? I'm gonna get some closer view of it. Okay, which cover do you think would work better?
And this
the
we
end.
might be changing fonts and things like
Yeah.
that. So just
Yeah.
think of the whole.
Yes, this one you can see it's of a you have a kind of an enchantress, woman with otherworldly powers, who's kind of floating in the air a little bit, and
About
then
to explode.
yeah, and this and then this one is just a bunch of surly guys going to wreck some people, and yeah. So yeah, tell me your thoughts, and yeah, thanks again everybody for participating. Thank you for watching, and we'll probably do this again. Okay.
Go Ronald.
Yeah.